For this project, I want to draw some kites. And I've just got some simple kites on the screen right now, but I have some other kites that are different shapes, and these are more like sports kites or aerobatic flying, and then I've got a couple of the traditional kites as well. Kites can be very colorful, and they can be decorated a lot of different ways, and they can be lots of different shapes and sizes. The first kites were flown about 2,500 years ago, and we are pretty sure that China invented them. Alright, in order to get started, you need to turn your paper in the landscape direction and draw a shape that looks like the roof of a house. Now, it's pretty near the top, but it's not at the top, so skip down a little space and draw what you see. Next, add a big V right under that shape that you first drew. I've got that in red so that it stands out from the first thing. So I'll give you just a minute to draw that V. Take your time. If you need to erase a little bit, that's fine, but don't just keep erasing and retrying. Alright, add a tail. A straight line will do, but if you wanted to have a little bit of a curve in it, that's okay also. If you want yours to be different, you can make yours different. It's art, so it's okay. For the next step, we're just going to put a piece across like this. And again, you don't have to do that. If you want that space to be open so that you can decorate your kite in that area, that's also fine. Now, I'm going to add little bow shapes to the tail. You can make those up all on your own. You can use different shapes. What I do is cross over this line and then crisscross. And we'll turn that into a little bow. And those are tied on to the kite string to weigh down the back of it. It helps the kite to fly better. Then drop down and cross, crisscross, and seal off the ends. You might have room for one more, or maybe a couple, but you don't need many. I'm going back to the corner, and I'm going to put two little streamers, or maybe more, off of the corners like that. Okay, go over into the empty space beside your kite and make another shape like the roof of a house. Once again, it's in red so that you can see where we're working. This time we're not going to put a V, we're going to put two rainbow shapes. So drop down from the middle of the kite and put a dot down below the top of what is like the roof of a house. Just drop down, put a dot, and put two rainbows going to that dot, just like you see right here. Once again, we need to add a tail, and you can make your tail different. If you just want 3 or 4 streamers coming off instead of, those bows like that, that will be fine. Now we're going to the other side and do the same thing. We're going to make the roof of a house type shape. Just take your time. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you keep erasing, you'll wear a hole in your paper, so get it the best you can and move on. Now, go to the top of that triangle, drop down, put a dot, and put two rainbow shapes to the dot. You can see, let your eyes tell you what to do. It's not hard to do if you just follow what you see. And that makes this one shaped very much like that one, but not exactly. For this one, I'm going to put a different kind of tail. I'm just going to put 2 or 3 of these, maybe more, that stretch off like that, more like ribbons, and a couple of longer streamers coming off the corners, and maybe 1 or 2 coming off that back edge. I'm going to put a curved line up here for the sun, and then these little streaky lines to show that it's bright. You don't have to put clouds, but if you do, they're just fluffy things, kind of like cotton. And if you want birds that are far away, you can put like little M's. And as the birds get further and further away, these get really, 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 really tiny, and it looks like a whole flock of birds. But you don't have to do that either. Now the rest of the picture is all about decorating these kites. You could put stripes across them and make it red, white, and blue. Or I've got some examples of others that I've done, and I'm going to put those on the screen over here. And then you can choose how you want to decorate your kites. But first I'm going to color, so whatever you're doing, just stop and watch for a few minutes, because this is really important. Learning to color neatly is extremely important. What I like to do is put 2 fingers at the top of the page, and I turn my paper around so that I'm comfortable. And then I color short, little, and I move the crayon back and forth kind of fast, but I move down very slowly so that I don't leave white streaks. White streaks do not look good. They just aren't going to help. As a matter of fact, they make it look bad. Alright, you can go back over it and you can get rid of those white streaks. Just knock them out. Go slow. Work on that and get that neat. Neat is good. If you color neatly, it's going to make your picture pretty. It's always pretty if it's neat. And if you use bright colors and keep it neat, then wow, that's about as good as it's going to get. And take your time. There's no reason to get in a great big hurry. I would rather it be a little bit colored and done well than completely colored and slopped up. Alright, now you can see some of these other patterns that I've done, and I'm going to put those up in the corner so that you can see those. Now, if I want the big areas colored one direction, nice and neat and smoothly, but when you do the kites themselves, you can let the stroke follow the form, and that just means color in the direction of the shape. If there's a long line on the shape, then just color in the direction of that longest line. Now, there are some kite festivals around the world, usually in February. February the 8th is celebrated as Kite Day in a lot of places, but April is Kite Month. But they can be flown year-round. I just prefer to fly them in warmer weather. And for a cautionary statement, let me say you should never fly a kite in bad weather, especially if it's storming or near power lines. That's very dangerous. Now, if you were at a kite festival, you might see kites shaped like animals or airplanes or boxes, 3D. You could see kites a lot of different shapes and sizes. Now, kites can be used for other things besides just for fun. There are people that have used them for fishing. They attach a fishing line to the kite and have a way of lowering it down to the water, so they fly the kite out over the water, lower it down, and Sometimes people catch fish that way. Or they could be used for observation. Before there were airplanes and drones, there were people who would actually attach a man to a large kite and lift him 50 feet in the air, maybe 100 feet in the air. Of course, that would be very dangerous, and we don't do that today because we have other ways of observing things from the air. But there are also people who have used kites to signal their location. Just they're far away from another group of people, and they put a kite up, and that lets the other people see where they're at. Now, those are old technologies. We have, ways of communicating now that are better than that, but it has been done. Now, large kites will fly in just a little bit of wind, but if you have a smaller kite, you need a pretty good wind to get those up. There's just not enough surface area to lift them if it's just a light wind. There are kites that have been flown up to 2.5 miles high, and I can't even imagine that. That is way out of sight. And then, of course, there's the most famous flying event of all, which is when Ben Franklin flew his kite during a rainstorm, which you should never do, but he did it for an experiment. On June the 10th, 1752, he flew that kite, collected electricity from the air, and stored it in a Leyden jar, which is just a jar that he had designed to store electricity. All right, I hope that was fun. Go ahead and be creative with your designs, color neatly, and here's you some music.